Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:09 p.m. Central. Putin hasn't nuked us yet. I just saw some posts about U.S. airplanes on high alert, like the nuclear ones, which I don't know how true that post was, but it may be true. I don't know. Like I see certain things that before it's news, you don't know if it's true or not unless you just put it in Google and make sure it's coming up everywhere. But I just saw something about that. Hopefully it's not true. But I know Mercury retrograde ended, right, Graham?
It's over.
Good.
It's been over for almost 2 weeks.
Is Saturn over yet? Because that one's been a real B to me.
Is Saturn over? You mean is the retrograde over?
Yes, I'm a Capricorn, so that one's been like whipping me to death, I think.
Okay, but, what planets are in retrograde? This is a Googleable thing. Hold on.
There was a bunch.
So let's see. I think, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune are still in retrograde. I think. Hold on. No, Pluto has gone direct. So Saturn goes direct on October 23rd, which will be next weekend.
October 23rd. Okay.
Yeah, next weekend. And then Jupiter will go direct in November, Neptune in December, Uranus in January.
Even Uranus is doing craziness. But Saturn, October 23rd, direct. Good. I hope that helps something.
Well, and Venus was also in retrograde, and it's gone direct too. So
okay.
So
well, tonight's guest, Frater Tenebris. Did I say that correctly? Frater Tenebris.
You got it exactly.
Good. He's the author of The Philosophy of Dark Paganism, Wisdom and Magic to Cultivate the Self. Another Llewellyn guest, and thanks to Llewellyn, we had last week Jonathan Hunt about the Trick or Treat Tarot. That was really good. Mm-hmm. And then next week we have Steve Snyder. That is about serial killers and making fun of QAnon stuff. Zodiac Killer. He's does a lot of weird stuff. And then the last guest for the Halloween show, which all month is technically the Halloween season. Try to do shows that align with that. And the 28th is Denny Sargent, Werewolf Pack Magic. Interview with a werewolf. So looking forward to that. Wham, if you want to sit in, let me know.
Not going to be in town. Not even going to have internet. So
you're going to a warlock ceremony. No, where are you going?
Oh, I have to. It's. I wish it was a vacation. It is not a vacation. It is. Okay. It is an obligatory journey that I have to make on behalf of my Sufi order. So.
Okay. Wow.
I wish it was more fun.
You make a documentary for that or something. All right. Well, Frater, The Philosophy of Dark Paganism, Wisdom and Magic to Cultivate the Self. Tell us what you mean by dark paganism. Obviously, you're not on the Christian Coalition writing something from the Satanic Panic Review. It's the opposite of that. So
I'm probably going to be on the hit list. But
Geraldo Rivera.
In the book, I define dark paganism as a positive, life-affirming spiritual philosophy centered on honoring and cultivating the self. Different people define dark paganism differently. It's kind of a term that's out there. I use the term in the same fashion as a author, John J. Coughlin, who wrote a book, Out of the Shadows. And it's called dark paganism because he views spirituality as having two basic threads or patterns. One is external, which is the light path. That's the most common form of religion or metaphysics, spirituality. And then there's an internal path. and that is metaphorically referred to as dark. So this focuses on the defined self, the finding your own path, and it approaches the same questions, but it looks at it from a different angle as the light paths.
We've done a lot of shows on paganism. I'm definitely no expert and like to learn about it. And one thing I want to ask you before we get deeper into the book is tell us about this Frater situation, F-R-A-T-R. I've had Frater UD on, Ralph.
Yeah.
He's been on. I'm trying to understand it. So what does it mean?
Well, it's Latin. It's where we get the word fraternity from. And so you have a fraternity brother. So frater is Latin for brother. And it's fairly popular, especially on those who walk a darker path, sometimes left hand, but not always. I want to say it originated primarily with, and I may be wrong, Golden Dawn, and a lot of their members started using the phrase freighter, or those who associated themselves with that. So you find a lot of freighters on a more of a darker path. Sometimes ceremonial magicians will use the term freighter, and then they would tack on whatever name, magical name, is meaningful. I chose Tenebris, also a Latin word, which simply means darkness. So it essentially translates as brother darkness or the dark brother.
So we're friends with Don Webb, who's been on. He's even co-hosted with me. So definitely familiar with left hand. And but for our audience, okay, there's a left hand path and then there's a right hand path. What could you tell us maybe a little bit for someone that's trying to understand it? And obviously it's not like I start going to this Lord of the Rings kind of thinking with it. And I know that's the wrong way to go probably with it. That's like the left hand path.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right. Come back to the dark side.
It's someone becoming a Sith Lord all of a sudden. Right?
Yeah, we have a Sith Lord here tonight. And
I left the horns in my ribs.
I'm a Capricorn, so I'm afflicted with both sides. But but what could you tell someone that's what could you tell the Christian out there freaking the F out? No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Well, there's a lot of controversy about left hand path, right hand path. Some will come back, and even in the pagan community, they'll say, "Oh no, you don't want to follow the left hand path. That's evil." Actually, no. If you really look at those that are part of the left-hand path, it very much follows what I defined earlier about dark paganism. It focuses on self-enhancement, self-knowledge, self-divination. I can't speak tonight, and that's not good. Deification. I'm so sorry.
It happens.
Deification.
It happens to me a lot. Trust me.
My teeth back in. So the right-hand path. This is all leftovers from ancient times when the right hand was good, left hand was bad, and it kind of got synonymous and moved around. There is a Hindu tradition that refers to right hand and left hand. Some on the left hand path try to make a connection there. I'm not quite sure. And I don't know if I really explained that very well.
So let's go right to a very controversial chapter 15, Dark Gods and Other Spirits.
Ooh, yeah.
For Halloween, of course. That's the first place we're going to go. But I deal with a lot of polarities because of the Church of Mabus name. And that name Mabus was from Nostradamus. And he never really says it means Antichrist, but Hogue, that John Hogue dude, made some documentary in the 80s and said that, and then it caught on, which maybe it did mean that. No one really knows what Nostradamus is, my point. And I kind of made it when I was younger and pissed off and a kind of a shock rock, I just did it to upset people, like an Alice Cooper kind of thing,
Right.
or something, like a Black Sabbath kind of thing. I kind of liken it to, which I say it means maybe us, which some people say it means Obama and Bush or Osama and Bush. I got a dude that comes on and he's broke down Trump to Drumpf, the German pronunciation, and he has this crazy chart that somehow turns it into Mabus, which maybe that's true. I don't know, but no one really knows what it means except the quatrain, which I don't know if you're familiar with the quatrain. The Mabus will soon die, a terrible undoing of people. The comet will run, but so my show's kind of like, it was just done kind of foolishly, the title, really. When I was younger, I was going to make a metal band named Mabus, but I came off the hard drugs, and I probably would have OD'd if I did that and died in some
Right.
on some stage somewhere. But luckily, it turned into a show, and yeah, I did it for shock rock. It was just kind of, at that point, really, I think I did it just kind of piss people off. That's why I did
Mm,
it. So I understand, but when you get here, everyone knows I'm not sitting here worshiping the Antichrist. I'm not doing that. I'm here to learn. I've had experiences where I think there's a Christ consciousness, a being as
mhm.
Jesus. And I grew up Christian, but I grew up uh, learning about other subjects. I love shamanism, the Native American. I
Sure.
love Norse. I've had people on, Evelyn Risedike, and uh, all kinds of people on about that. I love it. So I love to
Sure.
learn. But my point is that kind of like the polarities, like with dark side of paganism? It's like once you get in, everybody's a teddy bear, right?
Well, yeah, there's a little bit. I mean, some of the nicest people I know are dark pagans or on the quote left-hand path. You asked about dark gods. In my book, I talk a lot. I have a chapter, like you said, and I start out talking about, well, what do we mean by gods in the first place? What are we talking about? Are we talking about archetypes? Or are we talking about one or two gods and their multiple masks of gods? I take what's called a hard polytheist position. I think they're actual entities that you can have a real relationship with. So, what is a dark god? A dark god tends to be one that's a little bit more unpredictable, a little bit more wild than your quote unquote light side god. Um, Odin tends to be kind of a dark god. He's very unpredictable. Loki is a trickster god, obviously very unpredictable. Some gods you might think are dark side and really might not very much. Lucifer is the morning star. He's the light bearer. So even
About
I think
Kurnos.
last
Is
time Africa. I'm sorry,
Kurnos. Am I saying
no,
that
no,
right?
no.
The horn god. Yeah, the horn god.
That's a great example. He's a very positive, very light God. He's a god of the wilderness and animals, but there's a wildness to him too. You got to watch out for that. Pan would be a dark god, and a lot of satanic imagery was just Pan, basically. But the wildness of Pan, and he was a dangerous god. So that kind of wildness, it's a very human thing to designate a god as being light or dark. And it's more a human issue than it is, I think, for them.
Well, being a Capricorn, I'm familiar with Pan, definitely, and I've studied up on him, and definitely a wild thing there, a weird thing for sure. Connection, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. And we were discussing last week with Jonathan Hunt the devil card and tarot, and how everybody lumps that with Capricorn, and Wham got into the history of that. That was pretty interesting too. How
Mhm.
and that symbology and everything, with the
Right.
card and the devil and Saturn and everything like that. So when it comes to your personal practice, what dark gods do you hang out with?
Well, my patron deity is, a lot of pagans don't consider her dark, but I do, is Inanna. To the
Okay, Anana.
uh
Okay, I know. I've heard of her.
known also as Ishtar to the Babylonians,
Ishtar.
also known as Astarte, um, Sybil, Siduri. She goes by lot of names. She was worshipped for 2,000 years or more, actually probably more. Um, but since the beginning of writing, some of the earliest writings was about Inanna. And one of her most famous myths, and this is where she gets a lot of the dark side, is the descent, where she descended into hell or the underworld, died, and rose from the grave 3 days later. Sound familiar?
Yes.
Um, and this myth was around, has been recorded almost 3,000 years BCE. She's the
Uh,
goddess of war. She's also the goddess of sex, not love, sex. Goddess of fertility, sex, fertility, they go together.
yeah.
And goddess of wisdom, that she brought what was called the sacred maze to her people. That's my patron deity,
Sumerian.
Sumerian. They
Okay.
are part of the same culture as the Babylonians, Mesopotamia. Um, and you'll find references to her in the Christian book text. She was the Revelations as the whore of Babylon.
Really, I didn't know that. She's considered the whore of Babylon. Anana. Wow.
Mhm. Inanna,
Yep.
That's
Ishtar.
Anana.
Yeah, go ahead.
Among other things. Yeah, yeah. I was just agreeing with you.
Oh yeah, yeah. So and of course, she's also referenced in the Old Testament in the Hebrew text as well, as I think they changed the name a little bit, Ashtaroth or something. In fact, the demon Ashtaroth is based on her, whether it's her or a distortion of her. I don't know. I've worked with Ashtaroth before, and she prefers to respond to Astaroth, and others report that too. I've worked with, and through her, I have connections with other deities, mostly Babylonian. I work with Baphomet. You talked about that last week, about Baphomet.
Yes.
I
Oh,
work with
yes. He
Baphomet.
he listened up. He's been studying us.
We have a great
But
show. What are you talking
thank
about?
you,
Good stuff.
thank you. Well, when it comes to Inanna, I can't. Hopefully, I don't quit messing her name up. Anana.
There you go, man.
I
You
don't
got
want her to come and get me. But anyway, it's
You won't.
yeah, there's a feminine Christ story there. I've heard of that. I know I've seen some weird reptilian alien books about her that tie in weird reptilian stuff. I never read them, but I've seen that
it.
kind of stuff, like
Don't.
weird light worker stuff or something. But can you tell us a bit about the history of her? Did she go through a crucifixion kind of thing? That I mean, they did. I mean, they persecuted her or something, and then she went to the or
Well,
how did
there's
what
a lot
happened?
of controversy among scholars as to why she made her descent. The official wording in the myth is she did it because in a previous myth, she had sent what was called the Bull of Heaven as a revenge against the demigod Gilgamesh, and the bull lost and died. Well, in Sumerian mythology, the Bull of Heaven was the husband of the queen of the underworld, her twin sister, which I'm going to butcher the name myself, Erishkigal, I think I said it right. So the official myth says, or actually there's multiple myths, depending on which variant you read, she went into voluntarily, she got all dressed up in her armor and her jewelry and everything, and she told her aide, now, if I don't make it back, because nobody comes back from the underworld, if I don't make it back, you go and get help for me. So she set this up that this may be a one-way trip, and you need to get some help for me if I don't make it. So she sets off for the underworld, bangs on the door of the underworld, and is eventually let in. And through each gate, 7 gates, she has to remove a piece of clothing. Every piece, now she becomes more and more vulnerable, more and more exposed. So finally, she reaches the underworld. She's totally nude and essentially helpless. And she confronts her sister, and her sister confronts her as to, why are you here? Nobody's supposed to come down here. And she gets up and stands up and confronts her. Inanna walks up and brazenly sits down on the throne of the underworld so as to claim it. And as a result, she's judged and she's killed by the judgment and hung on a stake. And she hangs there for 3 days. During this time, her assistant is going from god to god in the pantheon saying, Inanna needs help. She ain't made it back. She told me to get you. And they keep turning her down. Basically, hey, Inanna shouldn't have done it in the first place. That was a dumb stunt. And finally, one god says, okay, I'll help. And he creates these androgynous beings who get the water of life. They fly down to the underworld. They find her sister pregnant, but she can't give birth. And it turns out nobody on Earth can give birth. None of the animals. All the plants are dying. Because remember, Inanna is the goddess of fertility.
Wow.
And she's dead. So she says, do whatever, just get rid of this body. So they go over, they give Inanna the water of life. She comes back to life. And right before she leaves, they say, oh, wait a minute. Somebody goes, somebody has to take your place. So out she goes, getting all her armor and everything back on at every gate. And she goes back up to you could call it the Sumerian or Babylonian heaven. Eventually, she finds her husband, Dumuzi, partying underneath the tree. And she says, take him. So 2 demons grab Dumuzi and drag him to the underworld. So 6 months of the year he's out, 6 months of the year he's in, and that's the reason we have summer and winter.
Wow, that's a trip.
I know that was long, man.
I liked it. That was good.
Like that.
No, you're good. That was great hearing that story. So where are you getting these stories? Is it Sumerian mythology? Is there a certain reference that maybe that you got them? I mean, I've heard parts of them, but you definitely got great detail with them. I mean, where did you learn most of it?
Well, lots of reading. There are a variety of very good books. One by the name of, let me see. I am drawing a blank.
Find it later.
His name is Kramer. He's one of the most renowned scholars on her. These come from ancient some of the earliest writings. Yeah, Noah Kramer.
Samuel Noah Kramer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Samuel.
And Diane Walkenstein.
Yes.
Probably the best source that I have is a book, Inanna, Queen of Heaven and Earth, Her Stories and Hymns from Summer.
Wow.
And, you can get it on Lord Amazon.
And who's that by? The guy y'all just said, what's his name again?
Samuel Noah Kramer.
Samuel Noah Kramer.
And co-wrote with Diane Walkenstein.
Wow.
It's been out for a long time. Another good one is Inanna, Lady of the Largest Heart, Poems of the Sumerian High Priestess. And that's by Betty DeSong Meter and Judy Graham. That was the first poet named, ever published that was connected her name to the poems. Anaduana was the source of that material. Anaduana was a poet in summer.
That's
6,000 years ago.
eruptions of Anana, justice, gender, and erotic power. That's Judy Grant. Yeah.
There's lots of stuff, lots of garbage out there, but there's a lot of good stuff too.
I've saved pictures of them so I can look that up later. But yeah, it's just fascinating hearing those stories in such detail. Like I've never heard all that, but I mean, I've heard things about her going to the underworld, but not the detail was alluring for sure. So Marduk and Tiamat, that's Babylonian, isn't it? Or Sumerian?
There you go. Yes, sir.
Babylonian.
Right. Babylonian.
I'm familiar with all that weird stuff from the Necronomicon, of course.
Well, that's pretty. It's a pretty surface rendering in the Necronomicon.
Yeah. We've had Peter Levenda. Levenda.
Well, whoever Peter Levenda / whoever Simon was /
Yeah.
Creepy
little book.
Yeah.
And I have this weird tarot too with Donald Tyson of Necronomicon that I'm scared to use. It's kind of creepy, but it's neat. It's like really dark and creepy. That's how I kind of the Church of Mabus name. I kind of compare it to Bruce Campbell in that book. Like that's just messing with things you shouldn't. There's so many different ways to look at it. But was there any Lilith Inanna connection, or is that just two separate things?
Lilith does. See, there's always there's a connection between the Sumerians and all the Semitic people, which includes the Hebrews. The Hebrews are some of the last surviving Semitic cultures. But there was a time when Semitic cultures stretched all across what we today call Iraq and Iran and Turkey, the Levant area, Israel, Palestine. They stretched all over there and had one of the largest, greatest empires. And how that ties into Lilith is that Lilith is a Sumerian demon called a Lilithu. And Lilith ties into that. Because remember, they're of the same culture. So there's a Babylonian flood myth, just like there's a Hebrew flood myth. And Lilith was based on the Lilithu, the Sumerian demon. There's some dark pagans, and those on the left-hand path that are followers of Lilith. She's big. She has a pop culture following too, like has a lot. Feminism. But there's a strong following, especially in left-hand path individuals of Lilith. These tend to be like, I don't know, some of them were Satanists, and that's a broad term, but not all.
So, who else of these dark gods are you talking to?
What is Hades?
Hades.
Hades himself is Hel, the Norse goddess of the underworld. There are some that work with Erskine that I mentioned earlier. My patron deity is Inanna, and she will sometimes, I guess you could say, connect me up with other Babylonian or Sumerian deities for a variety of purposes, as needed. I work with Dragon a lot. You mentioned Tiamat a moment ago. That's of course with the Babylonian dragon, primordial dragon, sea dragon. I mentioned Baphomet.
Is that Leviathan, or is that something different? Is that
Leviathan? They're related. They, the Sumerian, the Mesopotamian people spread out so far, and the variety of cultures. So they all have different names. And like I said, Inanna I listed off like 3 or 4, and I think there was some I left off. Tiamat, and I think Leviathan I may be wrong, but I think they're generally considered the same.
It's definitely fascinating. I know once I was tripping balls and I felt like there was a dragon and I was in its hand and I felt
Oh,
like a doll, and it was kind of like a weird vampire kind of experience
oh,
back in
really?
the day. And there was weird things with the moon and things like that. So I definitely think there's something to dragon energies, and I love King
Yeah.
Arthur and Merlin stuff. Like we've had guests on about that, and I have those oracles and tarots and books and all that stuff. Like I love all that stuff. Of course, Excalibur, the movie, I love that. I could watch
Oh,
that
that's
right
a
now.
great
Watch
movie.
that right now.
Great movie.
For the
I love it
40th
too.
time. But I love that movie. It's just so fascinating. John Boorman did it. He did Deliverance and all this other stuff, and it's just kind of like I love it. And the soundtrack's really good for sure.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
So beautiful soundtrack. Uh, but definitely. So I mean, how do you do a lot of this stuff? Do you draw like the stereotypical symbol on the floor in a hood with candles? I mean, you have an altar.
Well, you're pretty close on all of that. I have
I'm pretty
several
close.
altars. I have one dedicated to Inanna exclusively, and I only use it for offerings and prayers and discussions with her, and that is exclusively hers. I have a room dedicated for all of this, by the way. I have another altar, and that's where I do a lot of my magical work. That's where I work with the demon. That's where, and as well, the demon I tend to work with on the floor. I need a lot of room for that because I've got to make a circle. I have to have an altar in the circle. I use a Luciferian system established by the sorcerer Jason Miller for that. Um,
I've had
on the
him on
altar,
a long time ago. Yeah,
say again,
I've had him on a while back.
he's great. He's
Yes.
great. In his most recent book, Conjuring Spirits, I think it's called, is an excellent, excellent book. And if you want to get involved in working with demons, that's the book to get.
I
Or
don't.
any spirit, really.
Why do I always have a Christian reaction to this? No matter what I do, I'm like, hey, when I get involved with demons, what?
It took me a
What's
while.
going on, man?
Yeah, see, I was raised in a toxic fundamentalist household as a child.
Yeah.
And I think that drove me to looking into alternatives to magic. And then, so I was practicing, man, I had my satanic Bible. I had my, little altar that I would sneak up and put, set up when my parents weren't around. And so I was into all that as a teenager. Then I don't know, went off to college, met my first wife who was a Christian and kind of got away from it for years. And then finally was like, I can't fake it anymore. I can't do it anymore. And I went back to paganism. And so, that's my life story, and I'm sticking to it for that. On the but like I said, for demon work, I need a lot of space. Whereas if I'm going to work with the dragon, or I'm going to work with Baphomet, I'm going to do energy work. I do a lot of energy work. Some divination. I use another altar, and that one's a lot more darker and grittier. Um, so, and I know some people that have. Well, I also have another altar in other parts of the house to Shinto gods, Japanese Shinto gods. I practice that. So it's very common for pagans to have multiple altars in their houses. Some will set up altars to ancestors. Um, some for very specific purposes, some for temporary work. I have primarily these three: one for Nana, one for my magic, one for Shinto, rituals, and well, like I said, I have to use a lot of space when I'm working with demons.
I had another experience once on Halloween night a long time ago on some psychedelics, and I saw some reptilian type beings that they reminded me of Mayan gods because I have this oracle set that's like these wood glyphs, and the pictures for some reason kind of reminded me of what I saw. But one was kind of like a hydra, the other
Hmm.
one was humanoid and weird, and they were not physical. They were like a hologram or something like that. Like, I mean,
Interesting.
they were in another realm, no doubt about it. And my first reaction was I was at a lake, and we were there with some friends. My brother saw weird red eyes in the woods. I saw all this stuff when I went off away from them. And anyway, my first thought when I saw it was, oh my God, it's the devil. It's fallen angels. And I was terrified. But then I felt like positivity from them, like love. And you should, write and sing and dance. It was like they were Deepak Chopra or something, with a self help message. And I'm like, I'm really tripping balls here, man. Whoa.
I love
But
it.
I've had a lot of
Deepak
experiences under, the influence, and I've had experiences when I've been completely on nothing.
Right.
Another one of my big experiences, completely sober. I had some Bible DVD on the television set for some reason. Something in my head, it was just going through the Bible, like all this stuff on with a river or something on a DVD or something. Something goes, go outside and look towards your house. And I said, okay. So I went outside and I was completely sober. I don't even think nicotine. And I saw two shining beams of light leave my house as if they had been inside the house and flew out through the roof into the heavens, into space, and completely sober. And I wish I would have got it on video, or I didn't have a phone. I barely even used a cell phone back then. But it took me years to get a cell phone. I had someone draw it. Graham Ganson drew it once. That was pretty cool. But it
Mhm.
was like just two people made of light, like they had been in the house and left.
Wow.
And maybe they were angels, maybe they were deceased loved ones,
Right.
maybe they were aliens. I don't know. But I've had, different experiences in different states of consciousness. And so the
That's cool.
dragon thing's very, very, very interesting. There's something to it. Another thing that I love, Vlad the Impaler and Dracula. That's that dragon energy. We've had people on about that.
Right.
And there's something there for sure. I mean, the
I
guy's
agree.
name, son of the dragon or son of the devil or whatever.
Right.
But well, I guess when it comes to these experiences of messing with these forces, have you had any paranormal experiences? Or, I mean, what's the weirdest stuff that
Oh.
what's happened messing with this stuff?
Oh yeah. I have had a lot of different experiences. Not always when I'm working magic intentionally.
Give
I
us
always
some
say I
Goldie
live in
Oldies. I have my Goldie Oldies. Let's hear a couple of your Goldie Oldies.
some of my goldie oldies. Okay. Uh, Years ago, my wife at the time, and I went to Jefferson, Texas, which you may not know is known as the most haunted town in Texas. And in fact, they have a whole cottage industry. It's just walking, taking people around to show them all the haunted sites. But we were staying at the Jefferson Hotel, and it was like about late at night. I'm not going to say midnight, but I'm just going to say late at night. Laying in bed, trying to get some sleep, and I hear kids running up and down the hall. One trips and falls and starts to cry. Then you can tell gets up and runs off. And I think, oh man, that's what we don't need is children running around keeping us awake at night. Okay. So then we come back from the vacation and I get looking up Jefferson because I knew it had a reputation. And what did I find? I found that, oh, at the Jefferson Hotel, there's some there's some child ghosts who you may hear running up and down the hall in the middle of the night, and you'll hear one fall and cry out. Makes my skin crawl just telling you about this. I get goosebumps just talking about it because it's like I didn't know anything about this story, so I couldn't have dreamed it, but I experienced it. I have ghosts that live in my house. I see them sometimes. There's one that smokes, and my current wife, we're sitting here, we're watching TV, and she'll say, "He's smoking again," and you can
That's,
smell the tobacco, and it appears in different parts of the house. And I know one of the previous owners was a chain smoker. Because when I bought this house, I found a pile of cigarette butts out in the back of the house. And the neighbor said, yeah, he liked to smoke. He smoked like a smokestack.
smoking ghosts.
It was, yeah. And he still hangs out and he
It,
smokes and keeps it company.
it's fascinating when you think about that, because I know I've heard different stories of people smelling, tobacco with ghosts. And you have to say, well, is it a psychic phenomenon that's repeating from their energy in the past when they were there, or is this person really dead and somehow he really has cigarettes in the afterlife?
Right, makes you think what the afterlife could be like. But you're right, it is a wild thing. And I can tell you other stories. I've seen shadow men here. I don't read for those listeners that don't know, the shadow man phenomenon. You'll be maybe just sitting down, or you'll be walking, and you'll see this shadowy figure out the corner of your eye, and then you'll look, and they're not there. And this is a wide-scale phenomenon. Lots and lots of theories. You probably have had somebody that even talked about them on your show. What that is, who knows? It's a mystery. But I know I have at least one in my house because I've seen them. That kind of stuff. I have a poltergeist, but it's a playful one. That poltergeist likes to hide my phone. I'll put my phone where I always put it at night. Then I'll wake up and I can't find it. And I had my wife, okay, call it, honey, because I lose stuff anyway. She calls it, and it's been slid underneath the blankets of the bed, way back at the foot of the bed. And that happened several months in a row. And then
It's
it's
one of those things.
So yeah, it's a crowded house. I like it that way. Never get lonely.
That's the best way. Oh, I'm someone that's seen, some different beings. One of my weirdest ones was some cloaked beings standing in the woods near a black box, and they were small and hooded and thin. Couldn't see their faces, but a friend saw them with me, and a cat jumped towards them and they vanished. And and at that time I'd been reading stuff about the Celtic otherworld and stuff like that. So maybe, I always wonder what that little black box was. Was it the Hellraiser box, or, so the dwarfs from Phantasm come to get me? But so with all these forces, what do you do to protect yourself? I mean, what precautions?
Well, when I do a ritual, not when I'm speaking to a nana, I don't need protection when I'm at her altar. She is my protection. When I'm working with demons, I have, and you'll find this in Miller's book, I have an alliance with Lucifer, which, by the way, was a Roman god. This is not really even mentioned in the Hebrew text. That's just a Latin word for the morning star. When I'm working magic at my other altar, yeah, I do the traditional circle with calling the watchtowers. You asked if I wear a robe with a hood. Yes, I do. But that's as much for constraining my power and keeping it from going outside the circle. I'm not that worried about something coming in. I guess I feel pretty confident with what I'm doing, and I know how to cleanse my house. Variety of incenses, energy work, and there's a variety of other tools I use and I have some wards put up. For people that don't know, a ward can be any number of things. It can be a blessed or cleansed object who's charged with protecting you. And I keep wards up around the house. Think of it as a metaphysical security system. So yeah, but I don't worry too much about protection. That's a
Any
lot of
well, are you
nonsense.
you don't if you're on the left, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You're a Sith Lord, so you're the dark. Why would the dark side? It's not going to mess with you anymore. Me,
Well, you
I'm like
really
on the
don't want
kind of on
to.
the light side, and the dark side is trying to get me. And
You
then
know,
all those things are messing with me all the time. They
working
stop
with the
messing with you once you just surrender.
that's funny. Well, working with the demon is, you know, there's a one ceremonial magician. He said working with demons is kind of like going down to the seedy side of town, going into a biker bar, and hiring a couple of Hell's Angels to do your yard work. Um, you don't want to hang out with them. Okay, you don't want to become buddies with these Hell's Angels. You want to pay them and send them on their way. Uh, what we call demons, the ancients called sublunar beings. I'm sorry, sublunar beings. They're earthy, wilder, less constrained. They can get a little hairy, and you do have to trust your instinct. And if what you start to invoke, if your instinct says this ain't safe, this ain't safe, it's best to send it back on its way, cleanse your room and maybe your whole house, maybe ritually cleanse yourself. Uh, and there's some banishing rituals you can do if you think you've bit off a little more than you could chew. But most of what that those are stories that were drummed up in these grimoires about the how dangerous and you got to protect yourself only if you go in looking for a fight. Usually, that's the issue. You go in saying, you're going to be my slave, demon, and I'm going to make you do what I want you to do. Well, how would you respond? You know, if somebody approached you with that kind of attitude. So yeah, you're going to get some pushback. But if you go in there respectful but firm, confident, and with some strong allies on your side, and doing your research as to what demon you're working with, how risky is this demon? It's chances are it's not going to be bad. Would I recommend somebody that's has no real experience to go from zero to demonology overnight? No, no. You need to be working with some safer entities. Get to know your guardian, what Aleister Crowley called your holy guardian angel. Get them on your side. Get a relationship with a god. Um, practice your rituals. Learn how to banish and learn a variety of rituals long before you ever think about, read up on them, but long before you make your circle and try to invoke something.
Have you ever had any UFO kind of stuff, like or seen something in the sky that may have related to any of this type stuff?
Never been lucky enough for that. Man, I've always been intrigued by UFOs. As a kid, I just ate that stuff up. I would buy these UFO magazines, and I'd
Yeah,
read up how UFOs with crystals brought Bigfoot out into the woods, you
yeah,
know, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
I read that kind of stuff and I thought I ate that stuff up. So no, I would love to
Was it
see.
UFO magazine? Is that the name of it? Was I know there's one with UFO William Burns, and have interviewed him, but they don't have the magazine anymore. But he
Yeah,
used to be on UFO Hunters, show on History Channel. He wore a hat and glasses, but I've interviewed him a million years ago. But Wham, anything you'd like to add or ask?
Well, I mean, I think that the whole question about, or the whole sort of issue around what dark magic is or a dark path is interesting because, you know, there is the pagan definition of that, and then there are ceremonial magical definitions of that, and then there are tantric definitions of that. And so when I tend to think of it as paths that are more oriented towards, and your text seems to indicate this to some degree, paths that are more oriented towards you developing yourself as a person individually rather than as necessarily part of a larger community. And not to say that a person who is doing dark magic or on the left-hand path or whatever isn't in a community, because oftentimes they are. You know, if you think about like the Rouge Dragon or the Temple of Set, obviously these people are in community, you know, working on themselves. But you know, when I think of, because when you know, I'm very much a left-hand path person, and even as a Sufi, people don't think of Sufism as being left-hand path, but there are types of Sufism that are. And part of what, to me, being of the left-hand path is the word is antinomian. In other words, you don't automatically just accept anybody else's theory or anybody else's system just because it exists. You might practice in it for a while in order to find out about it, but in the end, you're kind of going to go your own way with it, you know. And you're doing that for specific ends. You're not doing that to be an asshole, although some people are assholes, but you're doing it because I mean, I have found that almost all left-hand path dark magic people are very eclectic. You know, they sort of they take what's useful and they go on. And they don't even necessarily blend things. Like on my altar, I have a particular deity form, it's a Hindu deity form that I'm very connected to, who's very much a part of the left-hand path in Hinduism, the left-hand tantric path in Hinduism. But I have a number of other deity forms that are around, but I'm a Sufi, which means that, you know, ultimately I'm a panentheist. But to me, there's no issue between panentheism and polytheism.
Right.
It's a matter of semantics. It's a matter of what angle it is you're coming at something with. And so, you know, but of course, all kinds of different people in different traditions would call me, I've been called a blasphemer all my life.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Geeks.
Yeah. And I don't care.
There you go. That's fantastic. Very interesting. Very intriguing. Everything you said. And, you know, you notice I do write about antinominalism.
Right.
In my book. And I critique how some misuse it. You know, for some, well, I don't have to follow any laws. I'm going to purposely not, I saw one say, I'm going to intentionally just not mow my grass to show how anti-nominalism I am. You know, it's like, I don't think you quite get what this means. So, yeah, it is very much about self-cultivation. That's why he's in the on my cover. And that's really, I actually don't talk much, if you notice in the book, about magic. I don't talk really much of anything about demonology. not in the book. I focus on self-cultivation. My 9 principles of dark paganism is about self-cultivation. So you're absolutely right. It is much more about that. Yeah, all this, working with demons, working with dark gods, that's cool. But when it gets down to it, it's really about cultivating yourself, not this self-help, self-improvement fad right now
No.
going on, but actual, discovering your true self, cultivating it, understanding it, being autonomous, and achieving something greater. That's what dark paganism is. That's the heart of dark paganism. Even if you don't, even if you don't have an altar, even if you don't follow any gods, even if you don't practice magic, it's really more about cultivating the self.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's all I have to say about it. I mean, everybody, I guess what I like about for me, what I like about the left hand path or dark paganism, if you want to call it that, is that it encourages me to really look at myself and what I'm doing all the time. I
Right.
mean, to me, it's really a path of self responsibility more than anything else.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and I can't fall back. It's not that I don't talk to deity forums or don't have conversations with folks. I do, but in the end, it's really up to me and my decisions. And I very rarely, there have been a few times where I've gotten myself into some real pickles, but it's very rare that I depend on spiritual forces or deities to just bail me out. Sometimes I need advice, like, well, this is more, I bit off way more than I can chew. And and if you to me, if you're humble and you admit your mistake, I usually get help. So it's like, yeah, you stupid humans again. And or as my deities put it, up, yep, another primate trick, good for you.
That's great.
you know
That's great.
but it's it's in terms of UFO. I mean, Jeff knows what I'm into in terms of paranormal stuff. So he and I have had some of the most whacked out experiences that I can imagine. So what that means, I have no idea.
Mm.
I have no idea. I don't. I've talked to people about my experiences, and they're like, "Oh, wow, you've had all those experiences." And like, to me, it just means I'm a stubborn so and so and need bonks over the head all the time. It's not really that. I mean, Jeff knows that some of these experiences scare the crap right out of you.
Oh yeah,
They're not necessarily fun,
Uh-uh.
and certainly a lot of them aren't things I would seek out. So,
Yeah, that's when I first encountered, I told it I work with I call a dragon, a specific dragon. And when I first encountered it, I didn't know what I was encountering. And it was coming up from behind me. And I was like, keep back, stay back. And then my wife, who has some abilities, she said, I don't think you should fight this. I went, okay. And I didn't fight it the next time when it approached. And it was a pretty intense moment when it approached. But it's been wonderfully productive. And my deities mostly, they don't so much, it's not like you're, you in Christianity, pray to your God and, things happen. A lot of it is like You need to go do this. Okay, you need to do that. A lot of it is giving me the confidence to get up and go do what I need to do. Even my divination, I work with tarot decks a lot. I love tarot. Jeff, I think you said you like
I
tarot.
collect them. I love them. Yeah,
Oh, I do too, man. I have
so
more
many.
than a dozen different tarot decks. And I work with two specific ones. One that combines demons with the tarot, got the Goetia um, tarot, and another one. And recently I've been developing a website and I couldn't get it to work. I had a great web designer who designed it for me, but I couldn't get it to load. I could not get it to be viewed. And I kept hammering at it, hammering at it. You know, this old Texas mule here kept trying to work on it. My wife said, "You need to call somebody. You need to call a web designer." I will. I kept hammering at it. So I did a tarot spread, and the two of the cards came up were gifting cards. Okay, which one I think is the Six of Pentacles, and I can't think of what the other gift card is. And the first one was when I got help before, and I knew what it was saying. You need to get help now. Again, same thing my wife was saying. Well, guess what I did? I ignored it. I kept trying to fix the website myself. And then next thing I knew, I got an email from the web designer saying, "Hey, buddy, just checking in on you. I noticed the website's not up and going. You need any help?" And he had it up and going in like less than 15 minutes. He had
Nice.
it up and going. The card said either either said you will get help or you need to seek out and, and suck it up and go get help, which I, like an idiot, ignored. And so yeah, that's one of those makes you things that makes you go
So that Goetia tarot, which I probably mutilated that word, what one is that? You need to know what the
It is
exact name of.
Goetia Tarot of Darkness
Oh my
is the name
gosh.
of it.
I know I'm looking at one. This dude, I think Travis McHenry did a Vlad the Impaler tarot. That's awesome. If you haven't seen it, it's a trip. It's really good, but it's creepy for sure. But it's like wood glyph pictures of him, and it's
That
the
sounds
one when
cool.
he's at the table and everything. It's called Vlad Dracula Tarot by Travis McHenry. But he has another one I'm looking at that kind of creeps me out. I want it, but I probably should never buy it. It's called Occult Tarot, and it has like all those crazy names of that I would be worried to say of the demons or whatever in it. But Occult Tarot, that's a good one.
Uh-huh.
But if you look up that Vlad Dracula on Amazon and click his name, you'll see all his stuff. But he's got some pretty interesting. I backed that Dracula tarot on Kickstarter when it happened, but
Oh,
it's
cool.
really good. It's creepy too, but it's like his whole story. Like it's not there's not really fantasy, I don't think, in it. It's mostly the historical, story of Vlad through a tarot.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely a trip. Uh, so what are you doing on Halloween night?
I'll probably be
Trick or
buried
treating?
in my what I call my sanctum. I'll probably be in there most of the night. Samhain, it's a powerful night. You know, it's when the veil between the different realms, different worlds, is thin, and that's a great night for magic. And haven't yet put together what I'm going to do, what kind of rituals, but I'll probably spend lots of time in there. And when I'm not, I'll probably be out watching like a old Universal monster movie or something like that,
Yeah, you
the Rick
gotta.
Dracula or Frankenstein.
I
So,
always have to do some horror movies, of course, and there's a bunch of different ones for sure right now. I want to see the Hellraiser one. I haven't seen that, the new one. I've been watching Interview with the Vampire, the TV series. There's different. I'd like to see Terrifier 2 really bad. With the clown that hacks people up by a friend of mine, David Howard Thornton. He's on my Facebook, but he plays that clown Terrifier. The second one's coming out. There's some others, some old ones. Let me get into some old ones for sure. There's one
Mm-hmm.
crazy one I really want to see called Glorious, about a glory hole in a restroom, and it's got an eldritch deity, H.P. Lovecraftian god behind it. But the thing that's so interesting about that is the dude that plays in it. Let me get his name. He's like won an Academy Award. He's the elder god. Where's his name? J.K. Simmons. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's on Shutter, but that's one I want to see have for
Yeah.
October for sure. And so it's definitely fascinating. So I guess I have to ask I've had people on from Church of Satan, Corvus Nocturnum, and some different people. I've had
Okay.
Father Sebastian on from
Hell
Vampire
yeah.
Movement and things like that. But a lot of times I find myself slipping into this weird Geraldo Rivero kind of role with these kind of interviews. So what do you, not to get too complex, but when it comes to Christ, do you think there's some truth in that, or do you hiss at it? Do you think it's a made up story that they stole from other belief systems? An echo.
Echo, echo, echo.
It's Jesus.
What,
I'm
what,
kidding.
what?
It's
But
Jesus. It's
you,
Jason.
you're getting in trouble, man. You
Okay,
well,
Jesus.
Jeffrey, you shouldn't be doing this.
well, good old Jesus was a very good man. Um, I mentioned briefly about him, and I'm going to go back to the book. I mentioned briefly about him in the back. I do a brief biography of him and what the historical Jesus, and what one of the theories are, which is that he may have been and that there were a lot of magic users at the time running around Israel, and many of them learned how to do magic in Egypt. He may have been one. Uh, in fact, the critics of early Christianity said, "Hey, you're just following a magic user, a sorcerer." And by the way, they were pretty much considered, like charlatans at the time. Many of them by the establishment. In fact, magic books were actually illegal in most of the empire long before Christianity. One, because if it was real, they were dangerous. If to the you don't want somebody doing a spell to dispose the emperor, right? So if it's real, it's dangerous. If it's not real, it's also dangerous because they're ripping people off, like fake psychics. And that's how they kind of viewed magic users. So they accused Christians of following a magic user. And Christians came back and said, no, 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 no. It's all about prophecy. All the healing he does is secondary. Um, so my view, one, I think he was a good man. He taught good ethics, good solid ethics. Uh, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You're not going to go wrong with that as a rule. You know, love others as you love yourself. Hey, I'm all into that. You know, um, that's good stuff, and you're not going to go wrong following those precepts. Did he get a raw deal from the authorities? Sounds like it. Was
Definitely.
he wrongly executed? Sounds like it. Um, I'll leave it to did he rise from the grave? I don't know. There's a lot of power. If he was really a powerful magician, it's hey, that was one powerful dude right there.
De-
So I don't know. And is he part of my pantheon? No. Do I follow Yahweh? I respect all gods just because they deserve respect. Everybody deserves respect unless they do something to lose it, in my opinion. So, I'm not going to diss Yahweh and back
Yahweh or the highway. But no, we've had Stephen
yeah,
Flowers on, and he's brought up some interesting things, saying like Yahweh's Thor or something like that, wasn't it? Wham or something like Yahweh Thor, like those weird connections where like similar deity connections and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, he said something to that effect. I didn't say anything because I disagreed, but whatever.
Proto-Indo-European, probably.
I do not care.
It's
I
just
do
weird how
not
people think
care.
it's some of them are the same or whatever. That's
Yeah.
I don't different
No,
points of view.
Yahweh was an ancient god. He was related to El. He was part of the Canaanite pantheon. He had his following. Some older myth, he had a mistress. He was one of many. There's lots of controversies about that. Do I believe that he is the one true God? That's not my faith. Is he a god among millions? Yeah. He's probably better than most of his followers, in my opinion. I think most of them disrespect their own deity, but we're not getting to politics right now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. A lot.
but so that's my view on that.
Well, definitely. Thanks for sharing. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is chapter 16, spirituality and the dark allure. What
Ah,
do you mean
yeah.
by the dark allure? For some reason, it reminds me of Interview with the Vampire, the dark gifts, the dark allure.
Well, when you talk about, oh, I love horror movies. Hey, I want to see. I have Shudder. You say, right?
It's good, isn't it? Yeah, it's
That
crazy.
you talk about, um, you know, Hellraiser and all these other shows, and that's a form of dark allure. It's an attraction to dark things. It could be dark aesthetics. I have a real passion for dark aesthetics. I like dark clothing. I wear black most of the time, not just because I'm a Johnny Cash fan. Uh, I like what's called dark deco, which merges jazz age style aesthetics with dark um, colors. Um, so there's goths have a dark allure. They like dark things. They wear funeral style clothing. Um, so when I talk about dark allure, that's something that's very much a part of a lot of dark pagans. Why that is, I give some possible explanations in the book. I talk about some of it might be shadow work, the merging of the shadow with their conscious mind. Um, but don't think that dark aesthetics or dark allure is negative. It's not necessarily negative. It's just a preference for the darker aesthetics, the darker side of things.
You said dark deco jazz? Or
um,
or is that, did I hear that right? I pulled it up and there's like weird videos beyond the ghost and all this stuff. Or is that
yeah,
like music? Yeah.
right, exactly. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. One of my earpieces fell out, and it's somewhere in the mess on my floor.
Uh-oh.
Uh, I'm sorry about that. Um, I mentioned Dark Deco. Like Art Deco, which is Jazz Age style artwork and music. Dark
Okay.
Deco blends, you could say, goth with that to create a new look. It's not big. It's not common. It's part of the diesel punk movement.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if that explains it.
Yes, 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 yes. Definitely. And yeah, Dark Allure, I get it. I collect weird horror toys. Like I have Nosferatu's that
There you
I
go.
have like figures that are hard to get and stuff like that of Nosferatu, and I have some Vlad ones that are hard to get. There's some pretty cool weird Vlad ones. Vlad the Impaler ones. And so what is the final scenario of all this? Are you ushering in Ragnarok? I mean, what's happening? What is the? Is there a final stage? What's the end result?
There is
Uh,
no final stage, man. The road goes on forever and the party never ends.
Infinity,
Uh,
baby, infinity and beyond.
so, you never stop growing. When you stop growing is the day you die, at least physically. Okay. You may grow on another plane of existence, but so it's always growth. It, you're never done. There is no ending to it. This is the beginning of growth, there's no end game on this.
Definitely. Well, we've done about an hour and 30. So, I mean, do you want to close out or you want to keep going? How are you feeling? It's up to you, really. We end at 5 till.
Well, I'm cool. This has been
You're
fun.
cool. Well, do you need to get your headphone
I
real
might.
quick? If you
Yeah,
if you do it real quick if you want, and we'll
if
just
I
kind of
can.
like we'll sing Kumbaya while you're
Oh,
gone. I'm kidding.
yeah. Oh, yeah, man. That's right. It's a good bonfire.
People have called me a vampire since high school. I went through testicular cancer at 17, which really sucks. Woke up, we took a nut, and you have to go through chemo. I cried,
Ooh.
and I was in the comic books. I read those interview the vampire books, and I escaped into all that stuff. When I came back to school, people called me a Satanist. They called me a devil worshiper. I was pale and bald. I wore black. And I wasn't really trying to go for that effect. I was going through chemo, man. If that ain't goth, if that ain't suffering, I don't know what is. That's kind of like a forced goth. But I went back and I even had people make fun of me, said I had AIDS while I was
Oh,
gone. It's
come on.
bullies. They kind of went away though as I got scarier looking. So uh, they don't mess with you as much when you start, getting scary. And then part of me probably did it as a self defense kind of thing too.
Hmm.
It's kind of like a dark self defense shield. But then, of course, my dad passed away after that, and I started to have all these crazy experiences from UFO to ghost to seeing weird beings of light. And that's why we do the show. That's why we've been doing it. And I always try to make the Halloween month extraordinary. That's why I was glad to have you on for sure with my lineup. And it's definitely fitting for sure, no doubt about it. And so, I mean, is this your first book, or have you had other books? I mean, what's your background with
This,
other books? Is it your
this is
first?
my first. Uh, I tell you what, for any aspiring authors, I have to give a shout out to Llewellyn. They're uh, they're fantastic to work with. They have made this so much easier, and they give real feedback. They don't pull any punches. You get a list of, hey, we need you to look over this for us, please. And this part doesn't make sense. Could you explain that? And it's like, ugh, okay. You think you have this great thing, and Llewellyn says, this is good stuff, but let's make it better. Let's take it up a notch. And they're very supportive. So I can't praise Llewellyn enough but yeah, it's my first book. I'm researching and working on a follow up. I've got other projects, a lot of irons in the fire right now, um,
Nice.
including hopefully in another year or two, a follow up book.
Cool. Well, keep us in the loop for sure, so we can get you on again. I'm enjoying it. And I got a Llewellyn story. The first time, I don't know if I've ever told this story. It's not that long, but I'll try to tell it quick. The first time I came across a Llewellyn book was that blue Raymond Buckland big witchcraft book
Oh
in high
yeah,
school.
Uncle Bucky. Yeah.
Yes. And bullies, I had this bully at school that was crazy. Not going to say his name. He had pictures of Hitler in his locker.
Oh
And he
no.
told me if I didn't meet him at Wild Turkey Circle, he would jump me every day. And I think it was because some girl's house I went to or something, and he, I guess, liked her. I don't know. I didn't know what the hell. He kept calling me fat and stuff. I went through all that in school. But anyway, I remember that book, and I'm not someone that does spells all the time. I do like creative visualization with shamanism and stuff. But the first time I ever did a spell, I've drawn like glyphs and weird stuff, but I'm not someone that does a lot of spells. But the first one I know I ever did, excuse me, got a saliva situation. The first one I ever did was a spell from that book. It was a glass jar with nails and urine and burying it. And I did that spell, and I met that guy at Wild Turkey Circle, and he was beating rocks on his head and acting like he was on speed or something.
That just cracks me up.
Dirt rocks, and there was hundreds of people around, and I wasn't someone that got in fights. I mostly got my butt kicked at school, and then went home. My dad kicked my butt because he was abusive, and he kicked my butt for getting beat up. If I got beat up, it was just crazy regardless. But anyway, me and that dude got in a fight, and I remember bleeding everywhere, and I messed him up some, and he bit a part of, it's not really noticeable now, but he actually bit through my shirt a part of my nipple off. And I remember the police coming in a helicopter, and I left in a car that was, everybody called the Batmobile. And I remember Guns N' Roses playing and blood everywhere. And it was horrible. And I couldn't believe I went there anyway. Like, that was not something I would normally do to go fight someone. It's like some stupid, like a junior high. What's that movie? 3 O'Clock High, that old movie with the bully in school and everything. But anyway, I did that spell. I went to work at Conair where my dad worked. He was a supervisor there. People call him Jabba the Hutt. And there was actually a weird skinhead there that hated my dad. And I hung out with him, and he had weird Nazi stuff in his house. And that was creepy. And later that guy found me at a bar and said, "You know what? When I first saw you, I was going to beat you up because of your dad." And he goes, "But I decided not to." I was like, well, that's good, because he would have beat my ass. But anyway, that same dude that attacked me came to that place of work, asked forgiveness, and said, apologized. And apparently his car got in a wreck, and he knocked the girl up. He went to jail. He fell through a plate glass window, and all this bad stuff happened to him. He didn't die or anything. He was obviously, later I found out my dad's dead now, but that possibly my dad took the lug nuts off his car. My dad was that crazy. Wow. But he was very scary. But this was a long time ago. It was in my 20s, But anyway, that guy came and asked forgiveness, and that was the first Llewellyn weird. That's a weird Llewellyn story, isn't it?
That's pretty. That's pretty nice.
But that was that bully. I wonder sometimes if that jar is still buried there in the backyard of the house.
What you made was called a witch's bottle. And they found those going all the way back to, I don't know, help me out here, 17th, 18th century and so forth, they found them at most. So what you did was very classic magic, sorcery. Witchcraft, whatever term you want to use. I prefer sorcery. But that's just me. No big deal.
Witch's bottle. So people have done that one since the oldie goldie days.
Yeah, it's urine, the nails, and clippings, and the whole bunch of stuff. And then you bury it. And yeah, Bucky's Big Blue Book. Uncle Bucky is a classic. And I think most of us probably got started Uncle Bucky.
That was the first one I remember. That was a trip for sure. What were some other influences of like people like him, obviously, but who were some other ones as you were growing up through this stuff?
Isaac Bonowitz was probably influence for me.
Isaac Bonowitz?
Bonewitz or
Bonowitz. Bonowitz. I knew him. Bonowitz.
You knew Isaac?
I knew Isaac Bonowitz.
Oh my God!
I found him.
You knew Isaac.
I knew Isaac. I also knew Morning Glory Zell, if you
Yeah,
remember,
Morning
if you know
Glory.
her. I mean, I'm like from old time. You know, I was carting Starhawk around from the airport in Kansas City before she was a big deal. I mean,
Oh yeah, Starhawk. She's amazing.
she is amazing.
Phaedra is amazing. But Isaac got me really on the path. I, Here's the story for Isaac and me. I'm in high school, so I'm a nerd, so I'm hanging out in the library, right? And I find a his book, Real Magic, in my high school library in the 70s. I think they thought it was a book about stage magic. Is what I think they did, because I can't imagine a high school in Texas in 1970 knowingly having a book on psychics and magic like his, and that really influenced me greatly, probably more than Uncle Bucky,
Cool.
when it came to everything we're talking about here. My whole way of looking at magic, my whole way of looking at this, everything, the way this book is written was directly influenced by Isaac Bonowitz. Or Bonowitz. Did I
I
say that
found
right?
it.
Bonowitz.
Bonowitz.
You
Yeah,
actually told me how it was pronounced.
that's
Bonowitz.
exactly okay. That's what I thought.
I
Bonowitz.
found his Druidism book and saved the cover. That looked pretty interesting. An essential
Oh,
guide to Druidism.
yeah, yeah. I think I have all of his books. I have everything. Authentic Thaumaturgy. I have Real Energy.
Saw
Uh,
that one. That sounds real energy. That sounds interesting.
yeah, that's a good book.
I'll
That's
have
one
to
of his
check
last
that out.
books, right before he passed.
Wow, I'll have to check that out. I know he wrote it with someone else too.
Phaedra.
Let me
Yeah,
see if that one's on
I
eBay.
follow her on Facebook.
Yep, there it is on eBay. I'll have to wish list it.
Oh yeah, it's a good, good,
So
solid book. All his work was good.
I'll check him out for sure.
Amazing.
Anyone else come to mind or
Those two. I mean,
yeah.
Anton LaVey, when I went through my Satanist phase back in high school, uh, he's uh, he was a character. I'm not going to critique the man. He was what he was, and I don't consider myself a Satanist. Don't get me wrong. I've worked with satanic energies and Satan. Uh, it's not evil. No, it's not evil. But it's I've moved long beyond his little black book. Um, so I guess
I've
probably though the two biggest influences was Isaac and uh, Uncle Bucky.
I've had his little book and read it before a long time ago. And we've done shows. There was a guy that just wrote a book about him. Trying to get him on. He's been on before, but he's in Sweden, so it's kind of a pain in the butt. I couldn't get him. He did a
Mm,
whole book from Inner Traditions, Otto something something. I'd have to look it up, but
uh,
uh, definitely interesting. But you should check out that Vlad Dracula tarot. You'd like it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
will.
keep an eye out. Travis McHenry. And so, what from your book? Is there anything particular that you would like to discuss from your book that comes to mind?
Oh wow. Um, I guess the biggest thing is I would emphasize that it's again that I know we talk a lot here about magic and demonology, but really when it gets down to it, it's about cultivating the self. And I know that may sound boring to some people. I just guess I shouldn't undersell it. They probably tell me I'm underselling it. Um, but the greatest challenge we have is ourselves. You know, I'm a big fan of Green Day, and in one
Yeah,
of the songs in 21st Century Breakdown is uh, you are your own worst enemy. Know your enemy. And that is very true. You are your own worst enemy, but you need to know your enemy. And in this course of doing so, make yourself no longer your enemy. You need to, you know, self acceptance. It's not the same as saying, "Hey, I can do whatever," and just, "Hey, I'm okay." No, it don't mean that. You know, taking responsibility for yourself. That was mentioned earlier. Taking responsibility for yourself. Uh, the existential philosopher Sartre said that if you blame others for your problem or you blame bad luck or whatever, that's bad faith. You know, you take responsibility for yourself. I mentioned that if your magic fails, don't go blaming some god somewhere. What did you do that made it fail? You know, did you do a spell thinking you were going to win the lottery? Well, good luck on that. Or did you just call it in? You know, take responsibility for yourself. That that doesn't mean beating yourself up. It means picking yourself up. Okay, try to make what's right wrong. If you hurt somebody, try to make it right, and then move along and do better next time. Um, so dark paganism is more about understanding yourself, self-growth, autonomy, breaking the chains that control us, like mass media, you know, who would have us buy stuff that we don't need, creating false wants, and be comfortable in your own skin. Be ready to grow, though, physically and spiritually, to higher levels. That's what dark paganism is really about, and that's the bulk of my book on that.
I know with Satanism, isn't it? Ego is kind of like it's kind of self gratification is kind of embraced, but with the left hand path or dark paganism, what is how does the ego fit in?
Ego's not a bad thing because you know there's a saying that nothing human is alien to me. So ego is part of who you are. So how can it be bad? Okay, but you got to also understand that it has its limitations. It's going to want to dominate. It's going to want to make you think ego is everything. It's not. It's the tip of the iceberg. The majority of who you are is buried under the surface, like the shadow, which is the dark side of your personality that you've kind of squished down and you kind of buried inside yourself. And if you ignore it, that's where you get things like Freudian slips, okay? Because it makes itself known. So the ego is, in answer to your question, it's important. It's just not everything. We There's no bad, evil part of you uh, that wouldn't make any sense. Because in my book, I mentioned that you are by nature divine as an entity. You are what the Gnostics called a divine spark, a spark of the divine. Now, let's not get big headed on that. Okay, some people let that go to their heads. I'm a god, they say. Well, you're a minor little god. You're one of billions of gods on this planet. So don't get big headed with that. But um, you are a divine being. So to say that, hey, this shadow side of me is evil, no. This ego is bad. No. The ego is not bad. The subconscious is not bad. You learn to accept that, integrate that into yourself. Doesn't mean always act on it. Integrate it. You'll find out that you can do a lot more than what you thought you could do. I used to I used to have massive panic attacks. I couldn't go anywhere. I had to stay home. I'd wake up in the night just in terror. And those have really died down a lot. Don't mean they've gone away, but a lot of it has been as I worked with myself, my shadow self, come to understand who I am, my nature. A lot of that's gone away. You know, I'm not one of the one to sound like one of those self-help gurus, on some infotainment program at 2 a.m. on paid programming. I don't want to sound like that because that's that. Uh, but there is a betterment of the self that's possible in this.
It's definitely fascinating for sure, and definitely always more to learn, no doubt about it. And so, when you say you're going to do a follow up, is it going to be what are some other things that you're wanting to get into? I mean, you don't have to, of course, reveal everything about your book, but
To be announced. Watch this spot. Well, I'm exploring a lot of what you brought up at the beginning. It's going to be a lot more hands-on than this book. This book it is very much the philosophy of dark paganism. It's the root base from which to build. My next step is to much more of a sorcery-based book of how to apply sorcery and magic to some of the goals of this book. And it does get involved. We talked about tarot, so it gets involved in divination, necromancy,
oh,
energy work, both the light and the dark aspects of magic. To use those terms that we like to throw about. It's in
hold
the very early phase. This other book took several years to write, and this next book is. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if it's going to take several years, but it's in its early stages. That's my hope.
hold the hearse necromancy. What can you tell us about that? That's something that's great for Halloween.
Great for Halloween.
Are you
Everybody thinks
are
that.
you a necromancer?
Well, I mean, I've
Like
worked with.
Judas Priest? Have you heard the new Judas Priest song that came out not too long ago? Necromancer. It's pretty
Well,
good.
that necromancer has the reputation for somebody that goes out to the cemetery and in the dark robe and raises the dead up from the grave, and uses them for whatever. No, necromancy mostly means working with with spirits, those who are deceased, those who are dead, working with death energy. Because it comes for us all. Okay. Uh, Death comes for us all. We can be all love and light and positive, but there's going to be a day when we die. And necromancy is a lot of working with death spirits and coming to grips and working with the deceased. Um, so it's not as like pop culture would have you think it to be.
Is
It
it
has a
like
spookier name to it.
is it like Birkin hair? No, I'm just kidding. Digging up bodies like Frankenstein.
Like Frankenstein. It's alive. It's alive.
Some necromancy tonight.
One thing I'd like to talk about is I mentioned earlier about a website that I was working on and how my fantastic web designer came in like a shining knight on horseback and saved my bacon on this website. I'd like to mention that for just a moment. It's called Shadow of the Black Rose, and it just went live. I'm not sure if you could even Google it. The website is www.shadowblackrose.com. Um, what we do on the site is that we showcase dark pagan, dark magic, and dark subculture creators, um,
Okay, I found
such
it.
as goth bands and um, like,
Looks nice.
oh, good. I'm glad you read find it.
It's really
Um,
nice.
for example, I'm real proud to that we have an interview, 13 questions, with the Marquis of Vaudeville, which is a popular band here in the North Texas area. Um, so our goal is to promote independent authors, dark subculture, dark pagan writers. Um, we just really went live just earlier this week, and that's kind of the next step right now. That's really tying up my time on a lot of stuff.
I'm checking out that Marquee band. That sounds pretty. Uh-oh, their video played while I was checking it out, but I'll have to save that to check out. That looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. I've been friends with the lead Toby for a long time, and great band, great music.
I'll
So
check it out.
pretty excited about that. Um, so anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up.
Definitely, definitely. The site looks very, very well made. Very nice. I
Thank
saved it so I
you.
can check it out later.
Yeah, if I
And
could put a plug in for the web designer is Ironstone Impressions. So if you're gonna have a site, I think he works a lot with Wix. If you're gonna have a set design, he's extraordinary. I've made some websites before, but he did. It was like what he did was like nothing I could have ever done. And he, like I said, saved my bacon. He came in like a knight on shining armor, riding down the hill, and hey, you're not working. Let me help you. And
it's
he had me up
definitely
in
very nice.
15
Very
minutes.
nice. I'll have to look at it more and then do a rehaul on mine one year. So I'll have to check it out maybe.
Yeah,
But yeah, we got about 5 minutes, and it's been amazing having you on. We really appreciate it. Lord, I apologize, but kidding. But great having you on. It's been great for Halloween. I mean, it
yeah.
definitely really is. Uh, Definitely would like to get you on again, and we appreciate it so much. What are some other? Is there any other links you'd like to give out or anything?
Yeah, there's one or two. There's one other I'd like to give, if that's okay.
Sure,
It
please.
is my blog for my personal blog, which is titled "Going Dark." You can see you can get the as wide. Yeah, "Going Dark," and the actual the URL is darkfrater.blogspot.com. Helps if I could talk. darkfrater.blogspot.com. Um,
Sensitive content warning before I went there. I had to
yeah.
agree.
Sensitive contact warning.
Uh,
That's nice.
so yeah, you click the button. Don't blame me if
You
it
know it's gonna be good.
don't blame me. You click the
Sure.
button.
So what
And
other any other horror movies you're gonna watch for sure at Halloween? I got that one for me and my daughter, and so Christina and me can watch it. The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. It's a cartoon, but I
oh
also got
yeah.
the books. The books. That's one to watch on Halloween. I usually watch that Trick or Treat sometimes too. The one with the little, the little stories and stuff. I love those. But is there anything that you got to watch for Halloween?
Well, I haven't yet seen any of the Cabinet of Curiosities.
Oh, that's Guillermo del Toro. I got to see that. That
Yeah,
started yet?
I'm a big fan.
I
I'm a
don't know if it
big
started yet.
fan.
Has it? Has it? I got to see that for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of everything he does. And
Yeah, he's
so
good.
I just can't wait to see what he does here. I mean, I've already, I'm kind of like one of those people where Halloween is a lifestyle. you know, it's just October and Halloween itself is just a celebration of the lifestyle.
Right.
Um, on movies like that, I think I'll probably go back and watch Bram Stoker's
That's a good
Dracula.
one. Yeah, I love that one. I've seen
That
that
is so good.
a lot.
That's probably gonna be the big one, and I'll probably dive back into my classic. I like German expressionism and the old Universal monster
Yeah,
movies. So
like
Frankenstein.
Nosferatu.
Not Nosferatu. I heard they're making they
Yes,
did all the remake stuff.
Robert Eggers. I think that's how you say his name. He did The Witch and The Lighthouse. He's remaking Nosferatu with Skarsgård, the It clown guy. I'm
Oh,
looking forward to that. Skarsgård's also doing a new Crow. Hopefully that doesn't suck. But that guy's a pretty good actor, so I'm looking forward to
yeah.
it.
Oh, but man, you're talking about the Crow. The original was so good.
It was amazing. And then the fact that the creepy death thing really happened makes it even creepy amazinger.
So
But do you ever see Shadow of the Vampire with John Malkovich and William Dafoe? That's
I
one
love Shadow of the Vampire.
that's beautiful.
I
Yeah,
love it. That's one of
that
my
is
top 3 favorite vampire movies.
that
Is
one is
Shadow.
so good. That one. You ever see that one, Wham? Shadow of the Vampire with Malkovich and Dafoe, where Malkovich plays Marneau, and they're really shooting Nosferatu, and Defoe is Nosferatu. If you've never seen it, definitely see that
No,
one
I have
first.
not seen
It
it.
is amazing.
With,
Like it's really good. It's about the filming of Nosferatu, and he hires a real vampire who gets the chick at the end for doing it. And of course, it's Defoe going crazy eating everybody, but it's not like your normal movie. It's amazing. It is amazing.
and actually, it makes you think at the end, who really is the monster
Yeah, they're
in
all
this
on
movie?
opium.
Is it?
Malkovich is tripping out on opium and stuff.
See, yeah, it just makes you wonder who's the monster here, and I think it's genius.
The guy that did that did this other weird movie called Begotten and Suspect Zero. Mirage, he did Shadow of the Vampire, but that Begotten is like decaying dead things and just weird, real footage that's just crazy weird. But we got to close out. It's been good, man. We appreciate it so much, and
Appreciate it.
we'll
Had a
stay in
great time.
touch and get you back. And we like it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Had a good time. Bye, y'all.
Have a good night. Take care. All right. Thanks, Wham. Thanks, Frater Tenebris. And oh yeah, Wednesday that new Tim Burton starts in November. The TV series on Netflix. They finally announced who's going to play Uncle Fester. It's Fred Armisen,
Oh,
and he was in Portlandia. I've never seen it. I've heard of it, but there's pictures of the new Uncle Fester. So I'm looking forward to that. That's in November. The new Wednesday show.
And season 3 of Netflix's reboot of Unsolved Mysteries starts
Nice.
Tuesday.
Nice.
They've got 2 seasons so far. This is the beginning of season 3. It's really worth watching.
I'll check it out.
okay.
I've seen the first one. I've seen the first one.
It's they don't have a narrator. What they do is they just let the people tell their stories, but they have retained the format and that incredible music at the beginning.
Yes.
Cool.
So
all right, I'll check that out for sure. Thanks, Frater. Thanks, Wham. Everybody have a good weekend. Stay out of trouble. We'll keep on moshing with the apocalypse. Good night, everybody.
Night, y'all.
Take care.